Agit mir der eine and welcome to the neue podcast was heißt Bechat to Bachaim. Du haben uns de groß Kuve den Ehre so mal schmies mit DR Shmuel Rosenberg. Hat a doctorate in clinical nutrition, a große dietitian, dealt especially with patients wo sind schon krank, und so haben jene Masse. Es ist a groß Kuve. Sie können reden mit Reb Shmuel. Hi Reb Shmuel, how are you?
Baruch Hashem.
Everything is good. So talk to me a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? How did you go into diet? What is a doctorate in clinical? I can't even pronounce it properly. It sounds very official.
So I grew up on Long Island.
Okay.
And at the age of 26, I grew up in a secular home. My mom was very traditional.
Okay.
But it
so
was...
you had Manischewitz gefilte fish?
We had Manischewitz gefilte fish. Very good. And my mom always lit candles.
Oh,
And
okay.
she always brought kosher food into the home.
Interesting.
So,
Meaning she kept the house standard. In the home.
Right. That was how she grew up. And how she grew up is how
Where's
she
your mother
was.
from originally?
My mom is from Pataksluty.
Where's that?
Somewhere, I think, around Poland in the area.
So how many generations is in America already?
My grandparents came to America.
So before the war even?
Right, before the war.
By World War I or like before, even before?
Before World War I, yes.
Wow.
So yeah. So at the age of 26, I was invited to spend Shabbos from family's home.
Mm-hmm.
And I never spent the Shabbos at a from family's home.
Right.
What I liked about it, it was beautiful and everyone there was normal. I love when people can be firm and stag.
They didn't have horns under their collars, right?
They were normal, and that attracted me. And then the next day, I went to Yeshiva Yoshev in Far Rockaway, and it was Leil Purim.
Oh, wow.
With the Purim spiels. And I said, if this is what yeshiva is like, sign me up.
You started the right way, not like that guy from the Gemara that waited till Shulchan Aruch and he went out.
Yeah.
He ate matzah for 3 hours.
And then I started.
So it was a Litvish family?
Yeah.
That you grew up with?
Yeah.
And they were normal?
Yeah.
I can't believe it.
So Baruch Hashem. So I actually worked in information technology for about 30 years before becoming a dietitian.
All right. Which college did you go to?
No, I went upstate, University of Rochester.
Okay.
But what happened is, Baruch Hashem, we're raising families. We have religious obligations, learning obligations, davening obligations.
Mm-hmm.
But my career, I worked for Wall Street companies, Morgan Stanley and some of the others. They want your life.
Right.
So it was very hard to give them the 10, 12 hours a day and still raise my family.
At that point, you were already from?
I was already from, yes.
Okay.
And so the thing that had to go by the wayside, I could not keep my skills up to date. So after many years, I became obsolete.
Right.
So I promised myself, Reb Shmuel, going forward, you're going to reinvent yourself, take on a career that you enjoy, and don't let yourself become obsolete. It's a lesson for all of us.
For sure.
If we just keep going with the same methods, we become obsolete.
And it's a great lesson, off topic, it's a great lesson for chinuch also. A lot of the older ways of chinuch, they don't apply. I mean, obviously the Torah is the same, Yiddishkeit is the same, but a lot of our younger generations, if you don't adapt, you're talking different code. Mm-hmm. The new computers, they can't read a lot of the code that you're bringing, so you have to adapt, for sure.
Totally. So what is a doctor of clinical nutrition? So after getting a college degree, to get a doctorate takes about 4 or 5 years. It took me about 5 years, and working in a hospital for a year.
What did you do in the hospital?
I was a nutrition intern. So I'd go from room to room with people nebuch on ventilators or with heart failure and work out how to support them nutritionally so they could heal faster.
Wow, very interesting.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. But the reason I went for a doctorate was because my patients are getting sicker and sicker and more complex. Nebuch in our community, everyone should be gesund and stark. We have a lot of people, Al Tiftach Perlasatan, with heart disease, difficult heart disease, with diabetes that's not well controlled.
Right, the level of fresh, you know what fresh means, right? The level of
Yes,
stress
of
that's
course.
going on these days is not normal. You know, back in the day, I always say that the older generation, you know, your father's generation, they lived till they were 90 because a bunch of their childhood and their young adult life, they didn't have a lot of the garbage that's going on there. And there wasn't this huge overconsumption of fast food and meat. Now it's like not normal. Every kiddish, meat boards, and you know,
But during this interview, I will give you an eitzah for that. If somebody wants to eat from a meat board, I have an eitzah how to eat from a
get
meat
out of
board.
jail free card.
Yeah. So in nutrition, I feel I have big shoulders, so I like to say yes. I like to give heterim, but heterim comes with responsibility.
For sure. With great power comes great responsibility.
Yes. I'll share even the Rambam that right now. I was going to save it for later, but since we're talking about meat boards, so the Rambam writes, and it's Hilchos Deos, I think the fourth parak, I forget which halachas.
Don't make me feel like I'm what it is, but okay.
Okay. He says, regular exercise will make up for occasional bad food.
Interesting.
So a person has an exercise routine or a physical activity regimen, then occasional meat board or a Danish, no problem. But the Rambam writes that regular exercise will not make up for too much food.
For excessive eating.
For excessive eating. And the Chiddush is that good food will not make up for lack of exercise.
Interesting. I always thought it was different. You know, that I read, for instance, I read in Michael Greger's book, How Not to Die, or How Not to Die, one of the two. So he claims that based off his research, he didn't see any sort of benefit for exercise without diet change. You're saying the opposite. You're saying there is benefit in exercise even without significant diet change.
Well, lo zu avzu, you need both.
You need both.
But the point is, some people say, I'm going to do a very healthy diet, but they don't do the exercise part.
And it's not.
Exercise is ma'akev.
Really?
Absolute ma'akev.
Okay, let's get into it a little bit. We'll get to that. So let's start with some basics. So just to get, before we start, just to get the viewers acquainted a little bit. One of the main words that comes to mind when we talk about diet and nutrition is calories. What is a calorie?
Calorie is, think of it as how much energy does a food give your body.
Mm-hmm.
So we need koyach to think, to walk, for our heart to beat, right? So that koyach comes from calories.
Mm-hmm.
So if we eat enough calories, we'll have enough koyach to walk, to talk, to think, and to heal. If we eat excessive calories, meaning we get too much energy from the food and we're not using it, that extra energy turns into fat. So people tell me about Reb Shmuel. So I need more koyach, so I'm just going to eat more.
Right.
You're saying it gives me energy, so let me eat more to get more koyach. Doesn't work that way. The gift has a certain limit to how much energy it could use, and the extra energy you're giving it turns into fat.
So technically, if you're exercising, you should consume more energy because you're exerting more koyach, no?
Oh, you're saying very good. I actually find that people that exercise can eat a little bit more because they're using the energy as opposed to turning it into fat.
The recommended daily amount of calories, they say, is 2,000. Do you agree with that?
I think that we get so many extra calories that we're not aware of. So if I would tell you 2,000, we're probably getting about 2,600.
Right.
We get a lot of hidden sources of calories. So I think that people that want to lose weight should probably aim for about 1,600 calories.
Is there any way going to get extra calories?
Yeah, but you know, you can get 1,600 calories and feel zat. There are ways to do it. A Danish is not going to help a person get zat.
Empty calories.
You know, but a sweet potato, nice baked potato will help a person to become zat. So there's ways to get zat in 1,600 calories.
Interesting. Okay. Okay, let's get to the three main sort of topics, not topics, the three main categories, just to get a little more clarification. What is a carb and what role does it play in the body?
Think of carbs as a main fuel for our bodies. So when we eat carbs, they're called carbohydrates, turns into sugar. Our brain needs a tremendous amount of sugar to think, to problem solve, but there are clean burning carbs and then carbs that don't burn clean, meaning clean fuel, like premium fuel, think of it.
Diesel.
Okay, I'm not sure how clean diesel is, but it's clean fuel.
Or 93 over there.
So complex carbs would be like potatoes, sweet potatoes, from vegetables, from rice, from corn. Those are called slow burning carbs, like a steady flame. Think of it, your gas is, you want to cook some food, it burns steady.
Crock
pot or stove. Now the other carbs are the carbs like Danishes, not to blame a Danish,
right.
or a bagel. What that does is that's like when it gets into your body, it causes a big flame, and then the flame goes out. So a person gets mood, they get energy, and then they crash.
Right.
And it even it causes them to not think clearly. They can get brain fog. So you want a clean, steady burning fluid.
What is the difference between it? What makes a potato slow and a Danish go fast?
Because a potato takes more time to turn into sugar.
Okay.
A Danish turns into sugar chick-chock.
Why?
Because it's a simple carb. A potato, the structure, the molecular structure of the carbs in a potato, it comes together with fiber and other materials. So that it takes longer for the body to absorb the carb. Whereas a Danish or a bagel, right away, the body turns it straight into sugar. It gives a person a high, and then they crash.
Okay, so just to clarify a little bit more. So you consume a carb, let's say eat a potato, right? So walk me through a little bit about the process. What happens with that potato? How does it fuel your body?
Well, it turns into sugar. And we said that our brain uses a lot of sugar to think. Our muscles use sugar to walk. So, but I want to mention something because carbs have got a bad reputation these days. A lot of people are going on low carb diets.
Right, for sure.
I'll tell you, carbs are brain food and mood stabilizers.
Interesting.
But a slow burning carb, like a potato, sweet potato,
brown rice,
whole grain bread, is a slow burning carb. It gives you nice, consistent energy. And the fast burning carbs like Danishes and bagels, it burns very fast and it burns out.
Right. It's very sad though that a donut tastes better than a potato. It's unfortunate.
So I will give you an answer how to eat a donut.
No, how do we eat a donut?
Okay. Let's say you make $1,000 a month, and after 3 weeks you spent $990. You have to live on $10 that last week. That's going to be really tough. But let's say you make $1,000 a month and you spend $600 after 3 weeks. You've got $400 to work with. You've got pas pesalo, literally, actually. So you could say, I'm going to use some of the money I saved, or some of the calories I saved, for half a Danish.
So you're saying that if you watch yourself enough and you make sure to eat whatever the lower calories or the easier carbs, then the occasional donut, or I guess the meat board would go into that, wouldn't be such a big issue.
I don't think so. But again, I only give guarantees for people that do regular exercise.
Okay, so
or regular, even walking. Even walking is considered exercise, but not walking to shield.
Right.
Because you meet Yenna, you schmooze,
You get too many stops, too many bus stops.
Too many bus stops.
Okay, so next, what is a protein? And what does it do? What is the role in the body of a protein?
So think of protein as building material, right? It builds your muscles, it builds your organs, it builds your arteries. It's building material.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also for healing your body. Like, you have to replace a steel beam. So proteins come in and replace the damaged parts of the body.
Like which parts?
Well, our cells wear out all the time and they constantly
So protein is
building material.
building material even for the cells?
Absolutely. Think about it. It's like structure. Structure and function comes from protein,
Okay.
right? So it not only builds the building, but it helps the building circulate air. It helps the building to work properly.
So it's more like the steel beams of a building or like the concrete.
All the materials except for vitamins and minerals, which are all we'll talk about, are also building materials. But what's important is that sometimes we use protein for energy. So we said carbs, good quality carbs are like clean burning fuel.
Right.
Protein generates a lot of waste products when it burns, and becomes energy. So, and it's also harder on the kidneys. So,
Interesting. So you're saying protein is not, for those that go, let's say, in a like keto, low carb, high protein, it's not as efficient because the protein produces a lot of waste product.
Yeah.
And it's harder. Why is it hard for the kidneys? Where does the kidneys come in the role of protein?
Well, of course, you've heard a lot of people have gout.
Right.
Gout comes from, that's the real, no one should know from gout.
Right.
But gout is a buildup of uric acid. So protein, when it's pulled apart in order to become fuel for energy, it generates uric acid. So the kidneys have to filter out the uric acid. So the kidneys can, but it's a big load on the kidneys. So most people, their kidneys work fine. But after 20, 30 years,
Right.
a lot of things slowly build up.
And then it turns into gout.
The kidneys can, or other people have other issues that lead to kidney problems. So use protein for building and for repairing. Not such a good idea to use protein for energy.
So how would one know if I like? How would I know? Okay, this is when somebody eats a diet, right? So I want to divide between, okay, I want my carbs to be fuel, I want my protein to be building blocks. But how does the person know that?
So the answer is make sure to have a sufficient amount of carbs. So I like every meal should have carbs, protein, and vegetables. So it's like, I call it the chut mishulash,
Right.
that works well together. And if a person has carbs at every meal, the body will say, oh, you're giving me sugar, but good, clean burning sugar.
Right.
I'm going to use that for energy. And I'm going to reserve the protein for building and repair.
But if you're not eating enough carbs, the body automatically has to go to protein, and that's what all the problems are.
It also takes fat and uses fat, but it
Right.
also uses
That's
protein.
that's my next question. What is fat and what role does it play in the body?
Oh, okay. Fat also got a bad rap.
Right.
But
Fat is the original bad right? Weight loss, everybody associates weight loss with fat.
yeah, so fat is a source of long-term energy. So when we're fasting or between meals, that's why I don't recommend snacking. Because let's say we have our breakfast and then we wait 4 or 5 hours. After 2 or 3 hours, the body says, oh, you're not giving me any more carbs? I'm going to burn fat.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we know we're burning fat when we start to feel like we could use that Danish.
Right. So you're getting that hole in your stomach.
That's when you're burning fat. And then you have your next meal. So, but if a person has a NOSH, then it stops that process of fat burning. So we're going to talk about weight loss, but a very effective way to lose weight is to have your 2 to 3 square meals a day and maybe one snack. You know, we come back from Marat at 10 o'clock and everyone wants something. That's okay. But to nosh during the day is a disaster for burning fat.
Burning fat.
But fat is also, our brains are mostly made up of fat.
Interesting.
Fat
is the brain a muscle though?
The brain is not a muscle. The brain is
I'm getting confused.
The brain is one ball of billions and billions of cells whose surroundings are fat, and the fat is like jello.
Right.
It keeps the brain cells working really nice, letting in nutrients and expelling waste products. And you know what keeps brain cells, that fat, that jello, working well? Cholesterol. So cholesterol and fat are your friends. Also, fat is cushioning when we fall down. But too much fat, I have many patients, difficult to breathe at night when they're laying down. They have so much fat. That fat weighs on their diaphragm, which is the muscle that helps them to breathe. And well, that's one of the many reasons for snoring.
Interesting, because a lot of fat people have sleep apnea.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what it is?
A podcast is sponsored by Shades On. Shades On is a blinds company. Aber es ist nicht noch a blinds company, was kommt da oben, get the service mit schnell installation, vergitte Preisen. Seit days auch, aber wie Shades On sets themselves apart, ist dass geben der white glove service. Wenn sie kommt sie stone blinds, und die Menschen sind indecisive. Sie wissen nicht, was sie wollen. In blinds, nicht nur sie get the privacy, it sets the whole tone and character from the design von dein Haus. That makes a huge difference. Shades On kommt da oben, helft dir kommen zur decision. Sie sind in tune mit den neuesten Styles. Sie machen der custom-made, wo du willst, mit Wording, unwording. Ich nicht Shades On in mein Haus. Ich hab auch schon mal Sachfensters und ich bin sehr happy. Sie servicen Muncie, Lakewood, Butterpark, Flatbush und die Catskills. Die können Sie contacten at shadesonnyc@gmail.com oder die können Sie riefen at 347-304-0146. Shades On. Privacy mit Style.
Oftentimes, that's a major factor. Also, we don't breathe properly, but that's another discussion. If we do what's called diaphragmatic breathing, deeper breathing, as opposed to using what's called breath breathing, using our accessory muscles, which are over here, then it works. Then it helps a lot, but that takes training.
Right, so we discussed a little bit before the podcast about breathing. So when I went to a breathing session, there's two types of breathing. There's a chest breathing, and there's a stomach breathing. It's literally when you breathe in, usually it's the chest, but you have to focus to do a stomach breathing where you focus on the stomachs going in and out. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, but it's below the stomach. It's the diaphragm.
Okay, let's get into a couple of major diseases that plague our community. And the number one cause of death in the world and the United States, and unfortunately, al tiftach pele suten, like you said, in our community, which is heart disease. So let's give a shtickle overview for those that don't know, what is heart disease?
So heart disease refers to problems with both the heart and the arteries that bring oxygen, red blood, oxygen and nutrients to the heart. What happens is those arteries get narrow or they get clogged. And then the heart has a hard time getting the oxygen it needs and the nutrients. That's when people start to feel lower leno, chest pain, sometimes, and if the pain radiates, a lot of that is related to diet and lifestyle, 100%.
Interesting. So what are the main contributors to heart disease?
So one, of course, we know smoking. Smoking damages the arteries, all our blood vessels. So when the blood vessels get damaged, they get these little cracks, situkim, right? Part of my modern miftah, situkim.
Situkim, right. Do you go to Israel and you ask Efal Kotel? You say koisel. You say koisel?
I say koisel.
You still got a chance.
Look, my wife is Hasidic. Don't ask me how that happened. But so I'm learning.
You feel proud, that there's a lot of the Sfardim, when they get an Ashkenazi wife, they get very excited. So you feel like you've caught you're Hasidic.
I'm the only one that doesn't wear a shtreimel in the family.
Really?
Right, in my wife's family. And when I sit around the tish.
Right, so you were saying about the cracks.
Yeah, so what happens is that lets cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, we'll talk about cholesterol, that lets the bad cholesterol get inside. And then it starts to build, and get bigger and bigger, almost like a scab starts to form, and the arteries become narrower.
So the oxygen can't get through.
Right, so that's from smoking, that's from high blood pressure.
And what is high blood pressure? How does high blood pressure happen?
So only about a third of the people, it's because of excess sodium. But also, what happens is the smoke causes that the blood vessels cannot expand and contract. our blood vessels they're very flexible, very plastic. And smoking or not exercising or eating inflammatory foods, that prevents the blood vessels from expanding and contracting, and that causes high blood pressure, which in turn causes heart
which leads me to my next question, which you spoke a little bit about cholesterol. When people speak about cholesterol, it's always bad. Nobody ever thought there's such a thing as good cholesterol. So what is cholesterol? What is the role of cholesterol in the body? And what is good and what is bad cholesterol?
So cholesterol is important. We said our brain cells are one ball of, trillions of balls of jelly. And what stabilizes the jelly is cholesterol, right? So it's very important for our ability to think. And cholesterol, also a lot of the hormones that help men to be men, women to be women, come from cholesterol. A lot of the healing compounds in our body come from cholesterol. So cholesterol is really, it got a bad rap, but cholesterol
super important for the
super
body.
important. Now, as you said, there's bad cholesterol and good cholesterol. The bad cholesterol is called the LDL cholesterol. And what happens is not that the cholesterol is bad, but what happens is when we smoke, when we eat inflammatory foods, the cholesterol gets sticky. So like we said, with high blood pressure or with smoking, that there are these little cracks. So thank you. So the cholesterol gets pulled into these cracks and start to stick there and start creating layers upon layers. That's why we call it the bad cholesterol. But really, it's not bad in and of itself. Just when we have too much of it, it starts to build up.
Is cholesterol fat or are they two separate things?
Cholesterol is a type of lipid, which means it's a type of fat. Let's call it a type of fat.
A type of fat. So essentially what happens is when you smoke, when you eat inflammatory foods, the cholesterol, which is neither good nor bad, goes into the cracks and starts becoming like a glue, which builds up. So automatically, yes, high cholesterol leads to heart disease, but it's not the cholesterol's fault.
I think that's accurate, yes. Oftentimes, yes. Now, there's the good cholesterol, which is HDL, and that actually pulls the bad cholesterol out of the body.
How does it do that?
It's like a carrier. It's like a carrier vessel. Like, think of an automated car, like self-driving car. What HDL does is it picks up bad cholesterol, it carries it to the liver, and the liver says, okay, let's get rid of it. We don't need it. The bad cholesterol.
Very interesting. Part of the keto diet, what they're claiming is, because I did a lot of research, I was on keto myself, and what they're claiming is that sugar is a major contributor to LDL cholesterol. So when you go off sugar, automatically your LDL cholesterol goes down. So the question is, does sugar play a role in LDL cholesterol?
So when we have excess sugar, the liver takes that extra sugar and converts it into what's called triglycerides, which are fat droplets. Okay. And LDL cholesterol can carry those fat droplets and deposit them into all the places we don't want the fat to be. So sugar can turn into fat and provide the building blocks for cholesterol. The other thing is sugar just, again, turns into fat, and that extra fat is very inflammatory. And the inflammation from the extra sugar causes damage to our blood vessels, which causes a prime cause of heart disease.
So if somebody goes off sugar, right, let's say he's on a keto diet. So you just said excess sugar, the liver turns it into droplets, which the cholesterol deposits everywhere it's not supposed to be.
Right.
So does going off completely from sugar prevent LDL cholesterol at all? Or you could still get significant amounts of LDL cholesterol even without consuming any sugar?
You're saying very good. Our cholesterol does drop quite a bit. In fact, there's a solid body of research that suggests that when we switched from fat to sugar, right? Fat was the enemy, so we started doing sugar. People started getting dementia several years earlier. So one of the thoughts is, why are people getting dementia earlier and earlier? Besides from all the inflammation and environmental toxins, it's because we weren't getting enough cholesterol into our system. So it's a real balance. We don't want it to go too low.
Equilibrium.
Okay. We need to reach that homeostasis,
Okay, now you.
which is equilibrium. It means the body tries to do well with whatever you give it.
Right.
So we need to balance how much cholesterol we need in our systems. Absolutely.
So Kugel, good or bad?
Kugel does not have trans fats.
No?
No.
Even if you cook it at super high temperatures? Because a lot of the Kugels, my wife makes Kugel, it has to sit at like 500 for like almost an hour. It's like a gizmo, like 40 minutes to get that really hard crust outside. So you're saying Kugel is not an issue?
I don't think Kugel is an issue.
Okay.
I mean, a slice of Kugel is not an issue. 3 slices of Kugel is an issue. I mean, but think about it. You know, the Ribbono Shel Olam fears the Welt. If a person has a piece of Kugel and it's heiß and it melts in your mouth, and you make a shayna bracha, hayitachen, would the Ribbono Shel Olam let that piece of Kugel cause a problem? Of course, right.
That's why, by the way, expensive cars are in less accidents. I just made that up. I have no clue.
But the person made a shayna bracha.
Yes.
But it works on the first slice of Kugel.
Right. The second and third, Hashem says, I already heard you, Brucher.
Right. You're on your own cheshbon, yes.
Right, so that's trans fat. So what is saturated fat?
Saturated fats, they get like very layered. It's like they become very thick and layered, one on top of the other. And saturated fats also have a bad rap. Because people say, saturated fats lead to clogged arteries, to extra sludge in your blood vessels. It's true only if there's excess saturated fats. But saturated fats, bechlal.
Where do they come from? What's the source of saturated fats?
Well, we get saturated fats from all our behemoth flesh. All the animals have saturated fats. Milk has saturated fat, unless a person goes with low-fat milk. Butter, cheese is saturated fat.
So saturated fat in itself is not a problem. It's the excess building blocks.
It's the excess. And there are healthier saturated fats that come from avocado, nuts, seeds, and nuts, seeds, and like flax seeds. Oh, coconut.
Olive oil?
No, coconut. Coconut and avocado are very good sources of saturated fats.
So what is unsaturated fats?
Unsaturated fats are not sticky. They're loose.
They're fluid.
They're fluid, exactly. And they actually can help pull cholesterol out of the body.
Okay, so unsaturated fats you're saying is actually very beneficial to try. So what has like unsaturated fats? Like what types of food?
Well, nuts have both saturated and unsaturated fats. All the oils we use, the vegetable oils, the canola oil, the walnut oils, the olive oils, they have combinations of saturated and monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, which means it's very liquidy, very loose.
By the way, on the topic, canola oil is probably the number one used oil in the kosher world. So it used to be that the reason they're using it is because it's healthier. Lately, I've been hearing some people, they don't use it, it's inflammatory. What do you think about canola oil?
So canola oil is on the richer side with what's called omega-3 polyunsaturated oils. It has other oils too. So our bodies cannot make omega-3 oils, and we need it. Omega-3 calms down inflammation. Omega-3 helps our heart beat smoother. Omega-3 helps our brain think clearer. So canola oil tends to have a higher amount of omega-3 in it. But you know, the devil is in the details, meaning it's how it's processed. You get highly processed omega-3, which might be pro-inflammatory, create more inflammation.
How would somebody know when they buy canola oil if it's been highly processed, though?
I don't think we would. No.
So
So
your
I think
recommendation is what? Canola oil shouldn't be an issue or should be an issue? I'm asking the Rav.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a rough type of answer. Shomer Pesayim Hashem. We live with Shomer Pesayim Hashem. We don't know. Shomer Pesayim Hashem means we do our best, we do our shtadlis. They say it's healthy, but is it healthy or it's not healthy? So we're allowed to rely on Shomer Pesayim Hashem. We can't move without Shomer Pesayim Hashem.
The question is if somebody, because it's now also a lot of style, extra light olive oil. I know all the ladies, I work in a supermarket, extra light olive oil is like the number one selling oils after canola. So extra light olive oil versus canola oil. Which one should somebody use for cooking rather?
You know, the extra light is not much more expensive than the canola. So if a person's budget allows that little bit extra expense, go with the extra light. Because it also has more what's called monounsaturated. And monounsaturated oils are the healthiest for the heart and for the brain. But again, Shomer Pesayim Hashem. If a homemaker wants to use canola oil, enjoy it. If you want to use sunflower oil, the recipe calls for it, enjoy it.
Right.
I don't think that's where we get into trouble.
So what are some really highly processed oils you would not recommend somebody use?
The oils that we use in processed snacks, the oils that we use when a person goes to a convenience store, to a takeout restaurant.
So you're saying
because what happens is when they reuse the oil actually breaks down chemically and creates toxins to our body. So it's not just the oil, but the constant heating and then letting cool and then reheating the oils breaks down the oils chemically. So you go to a takeout place,
right. So you're saying
restaurant
that you would buy off the shelf to use wouldn't be such a big issue.
I don't think so.
All right. One more little question on that sesame oil. You approve? You don't approve?
Sesame oil has distinct flavors, right? A distinct aroma. So if it'll enhance a recipe, you'll make a shayna bracha, and the Rabbono Shalom will say,
Son, okay.
I'm going to bring health.
Okay, let's talk about the next subject, which is the next most common disease in our community, which is pre-diabetes leading to diabetes. So what is a pre-diabetic?
Oh, that's really very important. Pre-diabetes is not a disease. First of all, I give nechamas.
Okay.
I don't get people scared.
You're like Yermi Anuvi. Have good, have bad.
It just means our GIF has a hard time processing sugar. That's all it means. Why did the government call it pre-diabetes? Because if we have too much diabetes, let's scare people. And it does scare people. Right. Let's call it pre-diabetes, so they'll panic. We know, of course, that panic raises the stress hormones that causes the sugar to go up. But put that aside, it simply means we're having too much sugar and our body has a hard time processing it. Where does that come from? It comes from being overweight and not being physically active. That's really where it comes from. So it means there's a problem with processing sugar. It should be addressed.
Questions like this. How would somebody know if he's a pre-diabetic?
Okay. I'm sorry to say, they should look at their, what's the Yiddish word, boch? The belly?
Both. Yeah,
if they're 20, 30 pounds overweight, they're pre-diabetic.
If they can see their stomach when they're lying down.
They're pre-diabetic.
They're pre-diabetic, okay.
But it's not really pre-diabetic. It just means they have trouble processing. Because what happens is this extra fat over here is inflammatory. You know, they say aging is called inflamma-aging. A lot of our aging comes from inflammation. Inflammation is like a fire in our cells and tissues that start degrading our tissues and cells so they don't function so well. That's what aging is. So having extra weight here, it's very inflammatory and it causes our pancreas to not be able to spritz out enough insulin to pull the sugar out of the blood and put it into the cells to give koyach.
So what is the role? Because always it's there's type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. it's insulin resistance. What is diabetes? What does it mean, insulin resistant? What does an insulin do to our body?
Okay, very good. So pre-diabetes is insulin resistant, and I'll explain to you what that is. Diabetes is when we're very insulin resistant and our body cannot compensate. So what happens, let's talk about insulin. What is insulin? Insulin is a hormone, and its job is very simple. It's to take the sugar out of the blood and put it into the cells to give koyach to the cells.
The sugar is a fuel, like we said.
Sugar is a fuel. So insulin is like the key to unlock the cell, to let the sugar in to give koyach. When we're 20, 30 pounds overweight, the insulin tries to unlock the cell door. The cell, it's stuck. It doesn't let the insulin do its job. So the sugar stays in the blood. It can start doing some damage because sugar staying in the blood can be inflammatory. So the body says, the gift says, I can't let this happen. So I'm going to take the sugar, send it to the liver. The liver's going to turn it into fat, put it right here. And the more fat we have here, the more inflammation, the worse our insulin works. So insulin, it says, I want to take the sugar out of the blood and put it into the cells to give koyach. The cells resist insulin. They don't respond to the insulin. So the sugar stays in the blood and turns into fat.
So essentially what happens is when you're overweight, your insulin can't do its job. So you become more overweight as a result of it.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Does insulin put fat in the cells also, or just sugar?
It doesn't put fat into the cells, but insulin is a growth hormone, meaning many people, lower lane with diabetes, they inject insulin, right? And so insulin likes to, the cells still resist the insulin. It does let some of the sugar into the cells, but some of the sugar still turns into fat. That's why people who take insulin get heavier and heavier and bigger. So it's not really a wise thing to take too much insulin. But the insulin.
Again, I didn't understand that last point. How does insulin make you fatter? Taking too much insulin.
Okay, so let's say somebody lower lane has type 2 diabetes. That means they're very insulin resistant. That means the pancreas cannot spritz out enough insulin to take the sugar out of the blood and put it into the cells. So what happens is the sugar cannot go into the cells to give koyach, so people feel shvach. So the body sends it to the liver turns it into fat, and it puts the fat here. It also puts fat in all our muscles, called ectopic fat, fancy term. It means that there's fat in places that there shouldn't be. And that fat interferes with our ability to move and our joints to be smooth.
You were saying that when you take externally too much insulin, it can, that's what I understood, it can lead you to become heavier. Did I understand you correctly?
So let's be clear. People who need insulin, it's a lifesaver. Because the excess sugar in the blood can cause damage to lower lano, the eyes, the kidneys, the feces. They get pins and needles. They can get wounds. Wounds cannot heal. So we need to get the extra sugar out of the blood. Insulin, the people that need it, the insulin helps take the sugar out of the blood and put it where it belongs. The problem is we go to a chasana. Chasanas are wonderful. We say, I'm going to be eating a nice bilkala, so I'm just going to give myself extra insulin.
Right, to help deal with it.
Deal with the sugar that comes from the bilkala. That extra insulin will cause us to gain weight.
Why?
Because it says, I can only get a limited amount of sugar into the cells to give koyach. So I'm taking the extra, sending it to the liver turning into fat.
You're saying the more insulin you get, the more sugar it extracts.
The more sugar it sends to the liver and to turn it into fat.
Interesting. Okay. So just to bring it all together, when somebody is loyaleno, as the government terms it, pre-diabetic, right? Or even he is diabetic, right? Can he reverse his situation with diet change?
You're asking a very important question for our community. Of course, many of my patients want to do it naturally without medication. So they ask me, can I do it naturally without medication? Or can I reverse it? So a person could reverse diabetes. It's called like in remission.
Right.
So they can live a longer years without knowing they have diabetes. But the minute they go off their game, go back to bad habits, it comes back. So a person can reverse their diabetes, but it stays hidden, waiting to come back out again. So now, most of the people cannot do it naturally. Of course, to do it naturally means they need to do about 5 things. You know, the doctor tells the patient to do 5 things. They say, this one I could do. This one I could do Mondays and Wednesdays every second month.
Right.
This one, the doctor's out of his mind. And this one, absolutely not. But it takes all 5 things to put diabetes into remission. For example, the mashal. Exercise is ma'akev. Exercise is the miracle to control blood sugar. A person wants to fix their blood sugar so it looks perfectly normal. Exercise. What happens when a person does exercise, it pulls the sugar out of the blood like a sponge. And not only that, when a person finishes doing exercise, the muscles continue to pull the sugar out of the blood for a few hours.
Because the muscles use it as fuel for themselves.
Or they store it as something called glycogen, which means ready to use energy. So as soon as I need it, it's there. And the liver also pulls in the sugar and stores it as glycogen, ready to use energy, to give it out between meals so a person doesn't get hungry. So exercise is the miracle. I'll give you an example. I have a patient. He used to go to the Bensonhurst pool 3 times a week. He had diabetes. He'd come out of the pool, went back to work, went back to business. An hour later, he's sweating, he's shaking, he can't think clearly. He says, Reb Shmuel, what's going on? I said, Reb Yid, while you were swimming, your muscles were pulling the sugar out of the blood like a sponge. You got out of the pool, you didn't eat. So your muscles were continuing to pull the sugar out of the blood, and your sugar dropped. In most of us, our liver says, oh, he's not eating, I better spritz out some sugar, make sugar. But people that have had diabetes for a few years, the liver gets bahul and cannot put out enough sugar. So the sugar drops and they get all these symptoms.
So you said 5 things. So that's number 1, exercise. Right. What are the other 4?
2, no noshing. 2 to 3 square meals a day, right? No noshing. Because again, a nosh causes the pancreas to spritz out more insulin, right? And the pancreas gets tired. Ich can't this anymore. You know, you're asking too much from me. A third thing is managing stress. Now, everyone's got lots of stress. I want to give a haftacha. The stress from Tsar Gidol Banim, from paying bills, does not lead to diabetes.
Okay.
It's the chronic stress. I'm roigus on this person. 10 years ago, he stole my best customer, cost me $100,000, and he's holding it in to this day. That stress can trigger diabetes.
It's a good story for the Meiler Biderman. And somebody asked him feel it from his friend, and his diabetes was in remission automatically.
So stress does cause inflammation. Which can trigger diabetes. It also causes the stress hormones to pump out, which causes the cells to not let the sugar in. So, yeah.
So that's number 3. We said exercise, we said no snacking, we said no stress.
No, we said managing the stress.
Not no stress. Sorry, one stress is fine.
Right.
Managing, okay.
Right. 4 is to get a good night's sleep. No one can heal. No one can lose weight. No one can control their diabetes who don't get a good night's sleep.
So let's talk about sleep for a second since you touched on it. Nowadays, with our crazy world and the nightlife that's going on, I try to go to sleep, and I know you're Shmuel as well, 10:30, 11, latest. But there's a lot of people that consistently go to sleep 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and they're up at like they gotta go to work. So, what is the minimum amount of sleep someone should get? Why? Why is sleep so important?
Okay, let's give one very important reason why for sleep. When we're sleeping, the body tries to heal. Most importantly, the brain can clear out the waste products when we're sleeping. If we don't get enough sleep, the brain cannot clear out all the waste products that build up
In the brain.
in the brain. And that's one of the reasons that could lead to dementias, to Alzheimer's, to neurological problems. And we see Parkinson's, we see all these other problems that people have. The brain needs to clear out waste products. And it does that when we're sleeping. Sleeping is a very healing, restorative process. And if we don't get enough sleep, then we can't heal. And late night eating. Not the snack somebody comes back from Ma'alev. Hashem is not going to let that apple
Right.
or that handful of nuts.
He's not a narcissist.
But the pepper steak, the sesame chicken, the late night, I don't want to say the names of the companies, but the late night restaurants, that, first of all, it's inflammatory, aleph. Base, metabolism works much slower at night. So they're not healing. The body says, oi, he gave me a load of food at 11 o'clock at night.
I can't handle it.
I can't heal because I have to
Be busy
figure
with
out,
this.
busy with this. Yes. And by the way, since we're talking about how the brain needs to clear out waste products while we're sleeping, taking it back to diabetes, right? With diabetes, Alzheimer's is oftentimes called
Right.
diabetes,
That's
type
what
3
they call it.
diabetes. So that's brain insulin resistance. That means when a person has insulin resistance, the brain is also insulin resistant, which means the brain cannot get the sugar it needs to do a good job so we could think, so we can balance our moods.
You're saying that eating an excess of sugar actually causes certain brain diseases.
I would say it very differently. I would say eating an excess of calories and not exercising causes insulin resistance. Don't blame the sugar. Don't blame the potato, right? The excess calories turn into fat. Fat causes inflammation, causes insulin resistance, which leads to brain insulin resistance. So it's the excess calories. It's the quality of the food. If we're eating takeout foods, the mushel, the inflammation. Don't blame the potato. Don't blame the rice.
Right. So insulin resistance in general promotes certain brain diseases.
Insulin resistance over time makes it that your brain cells do not get properly nourished, do not get the energy they need, and they start to either die or function less well. Yeah, it's a real problem.
Interesting. So let's go a second back to sleep. What is the recommended amount of hours someone should sleep?
So for sure, a person should be sleeping by like 12:30 to like 4:35 in the morning. The body needs a good 5 hours to clear the waste products from the brain, to heal, to restore, to repair the tissues that are damaged even from sunshine. So minimum is those 5 hours. Then to get proper restoration, we need another 2 hours. So we need about 7 to 8 hours. But 7 hours, maybe with a 15-minute power nap in the afternoon, would be fine.
Interesting. So what are some tips, because we live in a crazy world and we're on the phone, what are some tips to fall asleep faster? Because I know a lot of times I go into my bed and all this, that's when I don't focus on anything. That's when all the thoughts start coming in and it takes a long time to fall asleep.
Okay, so a part of it, very importantly, is all our time with our phones and computers. That our body wants to create, melatonin is called the sleep hormone. Our GIF wants to start building up our reservoir of melatonin, which helps us fall asleep, from about 7, 8, by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, our body wants to produce melatonin. All those lights from the computers, from our phones, prevents the body from producing adequate melatonin. So the light is a big problem. There's a whole sleep hygiene, which includes getting ready for bed about 2 hours before, turning down the lights.
Getting 2 hours to get ready for bed?
Well, 2 hours to start, for example, turn down the lights a little bit. So instead of reading from a smartphone, read from a book. There used to be books.
Right.
I
heard about it. My parents used to talk about it, right?
It also means just winding down the day.
Since we were talking earlier about vitamins, we touched on melatonin, which is, I guess, a hormone, a vitamin.
Hormone.
What is the difference between a vitamin and a mineral?
Okay. A vitamin, think of it as coming from plants or from the animals that eat plants.
Right.
A mineral comes from the earth. So like the vitamins A, B, D, C, they come from plants, which get their energy from the sun, and then the animals eat the plants. Minerals come from the earth, like magnesium, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, zinc. They all come from the earth. So vitamins are very important to help our bodies produce energy, to help us to heal, to help our immune system. Minerals are very important to carry oxygen to all the cells in our body, for our nerves to function, for our heart rhythm to work well. So those are the main roles of vitamins. So the typical vitamins would be like vitamin A is important for eyesight. Vitamin B12 is important for nerve health, for our movements and for our nerves to function well. In fact, people with reflux that are taking these anti-reflux medications, they have a deficiency. Almost everyone has a deficiency. If they've been on long-term Prilosec or things like that, or Tums,
Right.
in vitamin B12.
Interesting.
So a person on long-term Prilosec or these other things, to preserve their health of their brain, of their nervous system, they need B12. Yeah.
So if minerals come from the earth, how do we naturally get minerals?
So we get the minerals from the plants that absorb the minerals.
So you're saying it's the vitamins are produced in the plants themselves, and the
Right.
minerals the plants pulls it out of
Right.
the earth.
Right.
Okay, very interesting. So we talked about the main vitamins, which is A, B12, C is for the immune system.
C is for the immune system. It helps us to heal. It's for our skin as well.
And D?
Vitamin D is for our body to absorb calcium to protect our bones. Vitamin D is also very important for people with diabetes. So people who have diabetes should all be on vitamin D. Then vitamin K helps our blood to clot properly. In fact, K2 has become popular. It's a form of vitamin K that helps keep the calcium in the bones, to keep us strong bones.
Interesting. So how does vitamin D help diabetics?
Vitamin D, we call it a vitamin, but it's really a hormone. It actually affects the genes in our body, in our DNA, that can help our cells to heal. It reduces inflammation. It reduces toxic stress. And that helps us to prevent decay of our cells.
Right. So I know that most vitamins you can get from plants. There is D, which you can only get from the sun or from cod liver or whatever. And then there's B12, which is produced in the colon of a cow. So for somebody that is plant-based, let's say wants to go on a vegan diet, right? So obviously he would have to take vitamin D supplements and vitamin B12 because he can't get it.
Exactly.
Which other vitamins do you recommend people take supplements of because they don't get enough of it from their diet?
For the people that eat well, I don't know if they're younger, healthier, and they eat well, and they do their exercise, and they eat sufficient vegetables, I don't think they need to take vitamins. For most of us, though,
Right, that's
we
okay.
do. We all need a multivitamin. We all can benefit from vitamin C. Vitamin C is good for our skin. It helps to heal, but probably 250 milligrams twice a day. If a person wants to do 500 milligrams twice a day,
So a good
that's fine.
multivitamin should cover everything you're saying.
No, a multivitamin
B12.
for somebody with reflux, also, or they're getting older and they're plant-based, a B complex as well. We should all be probably taking vitamin C and vitamin D. And I do recommend these days, because we don't get enough calcium, take a vitamin D together with K2, which helps pull the calcium in and keep it in the bones. Yes.
Side question, I don't know if you know the answer or not. How can somebody know, because there's a lot of companies of vitamins in the market and everybody, how can somebody know if he's getting quality vitamins or that he's just getting a bunch of powders inside and he doesn't know?
There's something called USP. So if they see a USP label or NSF label or Consumer Labs label, that means they were independently checked and they have what they say they have in them. But again, okay, vitamins will make up for a diet that's not 100%. But really, vitamins are not going to prevent high blood pressure. Vitamins are not going to prevent, all the inflammation from our bad diet.
It's there to help you.
It's there to help us.
Okay, let me ask you something else, which is collagen. Collagen has become very popular, especially by ladies, because it helps with the hair, it helps with the skin. What is your view about collagen?
Yeah, it has become quite trending, they say, but I actually like it. It's expensive, so I only like it for people that it's not a problem. I don't want to stress the housewife out or the husband to spend the $40, $50, $60 for a bag of collagen. So I'm not opposed to collagen for people that can afford it. The only thing is, for people that are on blood thinners, they probably should not, they should ask the doctor before they take collagen. Also, for people that are really not well, the collagen can actually create more what's called fibrosis, hard tissue. So we want it to be flexible. It could actually have the opposite effect.
So what do you mean by not well? People that are sick?
People that have a burden of chronic diseases like heart disease, diabetes, kidney disease.
People that are not well overall shouldn't take collagen.
I don't recommend it unless
it's not like it's a vitamin.
No, it's not.
What do you think about protein powder? Protein shakes, protein powder, it's also a very big market.
Yeah, so a lot of people are too busy to prepare a meal, so a nice protein shake would work. Again, I always prefer 3 square meals a day, but realistically, it's important for people that, let's say, need to heal. People that need to heal, they had surgery or something like that, then they're starting to break down protein. Even a minor surgery, they're breaking down protein, so they would be doing good with a protein powder.
But isn't it protein, a lot of the protein powders have like sugar and a lot of times food coloring. It's very hard to figure out how to get a good protein powder, no?
So this goes back to my answer from the Rambam. Regular exercise will make up for occasional bad food. It also goes back to Shoma Pesayim Hashem. So if a person just Ein Barera, they need a protein shake in the morning. Okay, look for a better one. I don't know how to trust them. So I would just say, get one that you could afford and that looks reasonable and maybe has some one of these testing labs on the label. And
do exercise. It'll make up for...
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's talk about another important subject, which is water consumption. So, talk a little bit about, everybody when it comes to water talks about electrolytes. Electrolytes with water. What is the minimum required amount that somebody should drink a day? And what is electrolytes?
You're asking very relevant questions. Electrolytes are minerals. They come from the earth, and they carry an electric charge. We have an extensive wiring system in our body. So, for example, electrolytes control the rhythm of our heart. Electrolytes control how much our water balance. Electrolytes control our nerves. You know, our nerves are attached to our muscles, whether we are coordinated or uncoordinated, whether parts of the body get signals from the brain or don't. So electrolytes are an internal wire, are part of our internal wiring system, and are very essential. Now, we can get electrolytes, for example, magnesium we can get from nuts, seeds.
Magnesium is an electrolyte?
Magnesium is electrolyte. Calcium is electrolyte. We can get it from dairy foods. Sodium, we all get excessive amounts of sodium. Potassium, we can get from potatoes and from bananas. So we don't need to take electrolytes.
You don't need to take an energy drink per se.
Well, if we're doing like we're in the gym, then we might want to do a sports beverage. The sugar actually helps us to perform better when we're doing exercise.
I love you as a rabbi.
And the electrolytes help us to not get injured. It helps our heart to beat properly. So I'm actually for sports beverages when I go to the gym. But, elamah, 3/4 water, 1/4 sports beverage. That's all the person is.
You don't need a whole bottle.
No. What you're trying to do is, A, prevent injury. So a person that drinks water without sugar, right, they're actually stressing their heart because the heart has to work harder. But if they're giving it some electrolytes, we said it helps the heart beat better, then good. And they're giving sugar, the muscles could use the sugar. So I'm all for, but 1/4 electrolytes, a sports beverage, 3/4 water.
So what is the minimum amount of water someone should drink a day?
So you hear widely varying numbers. I think 8 cups is probably a reasonable amount for most people, but it doesn't need to be, at one time. A person that takes a few ounces here, a few ounces there, that works beautifully. That means they're constantly being hydrated. A person that drinks 4 cups of water and then they go for 6 or 7 hours. But some people want to do 12, 13 cups of water. I hear it. I don't think that's necessary. But it's very important that people that don't drink enough water, especially if people get older, they have to go to the bathroom more often, or they're too busy. They don't even feel thirsty as we get older.
Right.
So even mild dehydration, we can't think clearly. We can't make good decisions. And so our joints need a lubrication from the water. So it's really important to be well hydrated. And if it means that a person needs to go to the bathroom a little more often,
that's the price you got
so
to pay.
be it. Yeah, it's very important for our brain health to have some efficient water.
All right, so let's finish it off with an overview on some diets. I want to hear from you what you think. We'll keep it like sort of bullets. So ketogenic diet. Ketogenic diet is the diet where you go completely off sugar or less than 20 net carbs a day, and you focus a lot on high fats, meats, It's a high fat, low carb diet. What is your view on it?
So ketogenic diets can be used for people with cancer, lower lane of certain cancers. It can be used for people with certain spastic disorders. I don't think it's sustainable. I think that it's too hard to get simchas hachayim from a keto diet. But there are diets that can do the same benefits of a ketogenic diet.
Like what?
A 14-hour overnight fast creates some of the benefits of a ketogenic diet can be done from fasting for 14, 15 hours a night, or even a mild calorie restriction. So we talked about 1,600 calories. A person can get a nourishment in 1,600 healthy calories. A slight calorie restriction can also mimic some of the benefits of a ketogenic diet.
So how does keto work? essentially. I guess that's how we're going to figure out how it mimics.
So what ketogenic diet does is after a few days, the brain, instead of using sugar, because the brain is very hungry for sugar, can use a fuel called ketones. So fat can turn into sugar, or fat can turn into what's called ketones, a special type of burning fuel that after a few days the brain could use. And therefore, the brain gets sufficient energy. Whatever carbs we take in, the other organs in the body can start using. And our body will use some of the protein for energy as well.
So how does the 8-hour diet, which you said fasting for 16 hours and eating for 8 hours, how does that mimic?
Okay. When we're fasting, let's say we have an eating window of 8 hours. So we're fasting for 16 hours. Our body will produce this ketone fuel, and it burns clean and it burns nice, and our brain could use that. So we don't need as much sugar.
So what is the benefit of an 8-hour diet versus a keto diet?
An 8-hour diet is much more practical. It fits our lifestyles.
Right. So you don't have to cut anything out significantly.
No.
And is there any downside when, let's say, somebody is sustaining the keto diet? Is there any long-term downsides from cutting out sugar?
Yeah, there are, because, we hear of the 3 out of every 100 people who are very successful on a ketogenic diet. We don't hear about the 97% who aren't. For example, people who are on ketogenic diet think, oh, okay, I'll have 20 grams of carbs a day, but I'm going to have behemoth flesh, all the behemoth flesh I want.
Right.
I'm going to have some vegetables, that'll be my carbs. I'm going to have fats and behemoth flesh. The behemoth fat, that's excess saturated fat, causes inflammation, can cause heart disease. So in a sense, we're reducing the sugar, which helps with diabetes, helps us to lose weight. But at the same time, we're creating more risk factors for heart disease. So it's a balance. That's why I prefer a diet that does produce some ketones. It's called ketosis, which means ketones in the blood, but allows us to eat carbs. Again, carbs are brain food. Carbs are mood stabilizers. I love carbs. And it's not because I'm biased. It's because it burns clean.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so I guess 8-hour diet and intermittent fasting are around the same idea, no?
Intermittent fasting, while it could be a 16-hour fast, is also intermittent. Or some people do, like every other day, they'll eat only 20% of the usual calories. So they'll fast, let's say 2 or 3 times a week. And that means only eating maybe 300-400 calories a day. That also works, but it's very hard for people to keep.
Right.
I'm into the derech arucha shehi katsara, into fundamentals. I'm not into the derech katsara shehi arucha.
Right, there's no shortcuts.
We like gimmicks.
Go the right path instead of...
Kemat, any mahalach will work, but a person has to have a mahalach.
He has to have a mahalach that will be sustainable. And like you said, enjoy. What do you think about gluten-free? A lot of people, I'm not talking about people that are celiac, but I'm talking about people that are gluten-free as a diet.
It does seem that a lot more people these days are sensitive to gluten. And I don't know where it's coming from. I don't think the gastroenterologists know where it's coming from. So there is kitsat, a basis for some people to trialing gluten-free for maybe 6 weeks. The problem is people don't prepare gluten-free foods. They buy processed gluten-free foods, which have the same chemicals and artificial colorings and additives to it. So it could be tried, but I would recommend a gluten-free diet or a dairy-free diet, which people do. They do both gluten-free and dairy-free, especially for children lower lena with autism disorder. I would say that type of diet would need to be supervised by a registered dietitian.
I think vegan and plant-based we touched already on earlier.
I would like to make a point about plant-based diets.
Okay.
When I think of who lives the longest, it's people who take their flesh down a notch. whether it's chicken, turkey, fish, even though fish is healthy, behemoth flesh, people that take it down a notch, not 2 notches, a notch, and replace some of it with plant protein, such as nuts, such as lentils, such as arbus.
Right.
They tend to live longer. Yeah.
Interesting. So how would your ideal diet look like? Like if you tell for the hamoina, I'm not talking about somebody that has issues or allergies and stuff. For the regular person, how should your diet look like?
Okay, I'll give you a mahalach. It has 2 parts. One is what we eat, and the second, more important or equally important, is how we eat. A person that eats like a ben Torah, and I'm very serious about this, hear me out.
No.
A person that chops, I don't see any bracha from chopping. A person that says, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, my koyach is getting a little schwach, so I'm going to take a snack, maybe some rice cakes or something. I'll put something on it, peanut butter or other things, or some cottage cheese and fruit. I'm going to put it at a table, sit down, make a shayna bracha. I don't see any harm from that. But a person that says, I'm going to chop a Danish, I'm going to chop some cookies, I don't see any bracha from that. A person that eats very fast, I don't see any health benefits from that. So a person should, have a portion, take a little hefsek, maybe say a vort, sing a zemer, especially on Shabbos, then have your second portion. But always put your second portion in a clean plate.
Right.
Because that's the way a ben Torah eat. They don't put clean food in a dirty plate. So how we eat is important. Do we eat like a prince? Then I think we'll get brachas from that. The other thing is what we eat. I think we need a balanced meal with a protein, a starch, and vegetables. And if I have 55-year-old men with diabetes tell me, I didn't like vegetables when I'm 5, I don't like vegetables when I'm 55. And I say to them, Reb Yid, vegetables will save your life because I need to fix their diabetes. And vegetables have fiber, it slows the absorption of sugar. Vegetables help provide a lot of vitamins and minerals. So we need a chut mishulash, a protein, probably about the size of our palm, extra a little bit more the size of our hand. We need a starch, probably about the size of 1 cup. My mother-in-law would do 2 scoops rather than 1 scoop. Right. My shver said, it looks like there's more. My mother-in-law says, it looks nicer. Again, I'm very much into the food should look nice. Presentable, yes. And we should take down our flesh a notch and replace it with some plant. It's very interesting. There are some of the foods we eat that are very healthy. Halavai, we would focus on these foods. Arbus, very healthy. Vitamins, minerals, fiber, protein, a slow but easy, clean-burning starch, right? Cabbage, coleslaw. Okay, we flood it with
sugar and mayo.
But coleslaw is wonderful. Herring has this omega-3 oils, which we said helps the heart to beat nicer, and it tamps down inflammation. So some of the items that we eat are very good. It's not the herring.
So I hear what you're saying. So there's no one thing that's against the law besides the chopping, the Danishes, and the ultra-processed foods. It's about how you eat it, and it's focusing like on a plate. You should have half the plate vegetables, and then the other 2/4 divided between protein and carbs. Does that make sense?
And you can make the vegetables enjoyable. You could put it into soup. You could put it into a casserole. I like to steam my vegetables. There are ways to prepare the vegetables. But you know what? It all takes time. And I think our being very busy and misasek is working against being healthy.
Thank you so much, Reb Shmuel. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm sure our viewers learned a lot. And there's a bunch of topics we didn't touch on, childhood illnesses, and a lot of the other things, different diseases like cancer, which is one of your specialties. And there's so much we didn't touch. Maybe Metzhem we'll sit down for a second time. But in the meantime, thank you so much. How can people get in touch with you? Obviously, people have heard a lot of interesting information. Anybody that wants to get in touch with you for your advice, for your haluchas and your psukim, how can people reach you? How can people reach out to you?
Well, I'll say many of your listening audience doesn't really need me, but they know people who might benefit from a doctor of clinical nutrition. Someone with heart disease, someone with diabetes that's not well controlled, somebody with other conditions. So they might know somebody that could benefit from having a doctor of clinical nutrition. So the way to reach me is, my email address is shmuel@ons.care.
Shmuel, how do you spell Shmuel?
SHMUEL @ONS.care. Or they can call my business phone, which is 516-732-1965.
All right, perfect. Everybody, you can check out Reb Shmuel. Email him with any questions. You want to schedule a consultation. Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure.